Hello, it's Jack Tutor here of Attention Magazine. Welcome to Crucial Listening, the podcast where I speak with musicians and sound artists about 3 albums that are important to them. My guest this time is MC Dälek, Will Brooks. Dälek have been making music that smashes together hip-hop and noise for decades now. I think I first heard them around their record Absence in the mid-2000s. I've loved every record of theirs. For me, they kind of convey this contradictory nature of overwhelming emotional experiences. Dälek is loud in all directions: euphoric, despair, hope, melancholy. There's guitars drenched in distortion and reverb, electronics smattered all over the place, and the beats have just got better and better as they've gone on. Everything feels more enmeshed and integrated as time has gone on. Will Brooks, his vocals, his lyrics, as well straddle that line between hope and despair. There's just an unstoppable momentum to Dälek, and their social medias are just full of them in the studio making more and more music. You just can't stop them. So the new album Precipice is out now on Ipecac. It's amazing. We talk about that transition between Lest We Forget, the first track, and Boycott, the second. But it is really one of the most powerful things I think they've done. Just the drop is unreal. So please do check out that record. Head over to attentionmagazine.co.uk/crucial listening. I'll pop all the links in there. If you'd like to support Crucial Listening, you can do over at Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/crucial listening. You can chip in a couple of quid to help cover the hosting costs of the podcast, either on a one-off or a regular basis. I'll pop the link in the show notes for that as well. Otherwise, please enjoy and thank you for your support as always. This is MC Dälek on Crucial Listening.
Alkaline smile, hold back my acidic tongue. Tumultuous times will find my cadence from filthy breeds, philosophies, the sheets sword kept sharp for times like these. Bread beneath, so no need with rise raised. I'm bathed, incandescent, sense of most minute change. This a new age, turn page, burnt this off of it. Not many prosper it, preach your false doctrine. Receive posturate, I reach in your chest, please to make your heartbeat stop.
Hello, Will. Welcome to Crucial Listening.
Hey man, what's going on? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. So we're going to talk about your 3 important albums. Before we get stuck into those, I want to talk about Precipice, your new album on Ipecac, which was released back in April. So I know you've talked about this a fair bit, but you had a version of Precipice that was sketched out in like 2019. You went back to it after the pandemic and the social unrest of the past few years and decided that it wasn't what you needed to say, as I understand. So tell me a little bit about what happened at that point. I mean, specifically, I think what I'm interested in is how do you go about starting that process all over again? Like, what's your in? And is the sentiment enough? Like, how did you ensure that you didn't just end up making a similar record again? What did you change?
Yeah, well, I mean, like I think like our process in creating Dälek records, it's kind of like an endless process. Like basically, as soon as one is done, I'm still like I just work on tracks and beats and ideas constantly, and just kind of put them aside. And when it comes time to work on an actual album, me and my deco sit here and kind of sift through like what I've created. Like some of them are just like simple ideas, others are more like fleshed out, arrangements, and some of them have lyrics, some don't. But we kind of group them together with the ones we feel will work together. And that's kind of like what we did pre-pandemic. That's kind of like what I was talking about. And we had, like, I don't know, something like 50 tracks that we narrowed down to like 20 something. And then from that, it was like 17 that we really worked on. At that point, like Joshua Booth came in, he did some guitar overdubs and me and him worked on the arrangements. And then basically like that's like when the pandemic hit, and that's the point like where we got to, and we just kind of stopped. When we came back, when I say like, it didn't work. It's not that we started from zero. It's just, you know, some of the songs needed not to be on the album, and then other songs needed to be kind of stripped down and reworked and just kind of, you know, made to convey what we wanted to convey at that point after everything we had been through, you know, collectively. And then there was also just like tracks that both me and Manteca had created during the pandemic that just had a better feel for what we thought the album should be. So those got included. So it ended up being 10 tracks. Of those tracks, I'd say probably at least 4 were brand new, and then and 6 were kind of reworks of what was there before. So there's a ton of material that didn't make it, and it does, you know, some of it is great. Like I was actually like I did this like a broad, you know, in these times, you know, instead of a record release party, I did like a Bandcamp broadcast, and you know, DJ from the studio, and ended up like the first like hour or so, I ended up just like playing instrumentals from the session of stuff that didn't make it to the album.
Oh, cool.
And I was kind of like, damn, man, this stuff is kind of ill. You know what I mean? Like, so, it, you know, because it didn't make the album doesn't mean like that we're not going to use it. And it doesn't mean that, you know, that it wasn't good. It just wasn't where we wanted this album to be. And I think paring it down to 10 tracks helped as well. I just feel like it needed to be, you know, concise and needed to make a statement and just kind of, you know, just keep it at you know, like what it became. Like, I think it's like around like 40 something minutes. I think like that's like, I don't know, it just felt right at that length too. But yeah, I mean, like, you know, that was basically the process. Like we kind of like restarted, added those new tracks, reworked the other tracks, brought Josh back in, and just, you know, when we reconvened, it was like we were just so happy to actually be working together in person again, man. There was like a lot of energy, and everything just kind of started flowing, man. And it just, you know, everything from what we added, you know, Manteca brought in Lest We Forget and Devotion. I added like maybe like a bass on one, and I added like lyrics and a piano piece on the other. But those were basically like his creations, and like they just kind of captured the essence of what the album was, like right from the start. Like I knew when I heard Lest We Forget that was the album opener. And yeah, I mean, like, you know, from that to the collaboration with Adam Jones, like everything just kind of fell into place, and just, you know, everything ended up sounding the way we wanted it to sound. So definitely proud and happy of how it turned out. At least happy with it at the moment. I usually like hate the album about a week later. So for now, I'm enjoying it, and I'm sure I'll start hearing all the problems with it soon.
There's plenty of people to love it in your absence, I think, Will, so you're all good.
There's plenty of people to hate it as well. You know? Don't get it
levels
twisted.
out, huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Lest We Forget, which, as you say, you heard it when like that's the opener. One thing that's always felt really mindful in your albums to me is just how they're sequenced. And this one,
yeah, that's really important to us, man. Yeah, like we definitely I don't know, that's always been like an important piece of how we create music, going back to when me and Octopus made the records. Just kind of the sequencing of the songs and how it sounds as a whole. And, you know, I just always envisioned the record being listened to in one sitting. I don't really like, you know, I know like we live like in a singles driven world, but I come from the era of albums, you know what I mean? So that's the way I think of it. I think of each project as an album, you know, so like the way it sounds like from start to finish is really important to us. So, I mean, like, you know, the transition from Lest We Forget into Boycott is like one of my favorite things, man. Like when those drums kick in, it makes like that song sound heavier than it is. And it's already heavy, you know what I mean? But it's just like where you place it makes a huge difference, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, the other thing that really comes out for me is when you've got Devotion into the first half as Heretics Inheritance, and you got like what feels like maybe, you know, they got kind of traces of your voice at the end of Devotion, but it kind of starts to subside. So you've almost got like 5-6 minutes there where you're not rapping, at least.
I like the I feel like, you know, like the lyrics on Devotion are so personal to me and so heavy that I wanted like that time to reflect. And it's actually, it goes from my lyrics to then it's the lyrics subtly being played backwards from the end back to the beginning. to the end of that track.
Oh, that's so
And
cool.
then and then after that, then it's like the whole beginning piece of heretics and inheritance. So you kind of have like that whole time to kind of contemplate everything that has been said on the album up to that point. You know what I mean? Which I dig. And then like when the second half of Heretics kicks in, it's like, you know, oh shit, there's more. You know what I mean? It's like
yeah.
it's like oh shit, this guy's still pissed off. Fuck. Yeah.
Yeah. They have been some of my favorite tracks, I think, on your records, where there's a few throughout your discography where you've got this sweeping instrumental first half, and then almost like a fake end, right? And then it sweeps back up and in again.
Yeah, and also, you know, I think I've always, again, like from the beginning of when me and Octopus started this, like I've always, even though I'm the MC, I'm also a co-producer. I've always been involved in creating the music, so I've always looked at my voice as another instrument. So I think like a lot of MCs get caught up with like wanting to be the loudest thing in the mix or wanting to be always saying something, and I feel like sometimes the music can say more than words can, you know. So like there's a time and place for lyrics, but then there's a time and place for just like, you know, musical passages that, you know, maybe express other emotions that I can't say vocally. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
especially Heretics and Inheritance, I think like the soundscapes and the guitars and drones and synths that Adam added, just, I mean, they were perfect on their own. I didn't want to have my voice on top of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask you about that. I think you kind of answered it there, but I feel like I noticed that on this record more than anything, the fact that you cut back and cut back in, and, you know, as you've said, there is a power in you being absent, but also as well, just the initial moment that you reintroduce yourself feels, I think, even more mindful for the fact that you've decided not to be there for some of it. It's like, well, there's something needed to kick in, something switched there, you know?
Yeah, I think it's that, you know, that use of negative space is always important, you know, like either sonically or, you know, like whether it's like when there's lyrics and when there's not lyrics. You know, you could be saying the dopest bars ever, but if you're just constantly rapping, it's like that becomes almost a drone, you know what I mean? So it's gotta like that's cool too, but it's like the songs need to be all about dynamics, you know what I mean? Like, you don't know how loud or how heavy something is unless you have like a counterpoint. So we've always kind of been conscious of that. Sometimes, like, you know, a whole song might be heavy, but there'll be like, you know, those like transitions between like the song before or the song after that kind of like put it in context of the whole project. So that's, you know, that again, like we've always been conscious of that when we create records.
I wanted to ask about your vocals actually, because, you know, there's a few performances here. I mean, there always is, that are really intense, like borderline kind of snarled, really. How does recording vocals tend to work? I mean, is it a part of the process you enjoy? How long does it tend to take? How many takes are you doing?
Yeah, it's, you know, it varies from song to song. There's never, I always like tell people that, like, even like, you know, when people ask like how would we create the songs, like each song is different. You know what I mean? Like some songs just kind of, you know, I hate to use this term, but some songs just appear sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, it's like I don't even like. I remember like when we did mass laughter on Asphalt for Eden. Like I don't really remember the recording process. You know what I mean? But somehow like that song just became, and it, you know, I love it. You know what I mean? But there's other songs that I labor over. You know what I mean? There's other songs that take, you know, it takes a lot, and sometimes the takes aren't right, and sometimes it's, you know, a lot of starting and stopping and me, you know, cursing and, you know, throwing things. And, you know what I mean? Like it's a process, but also, you know, like we especially on this record and the last couple of records, I've really taken care to take time, and like there's a lot of layering of the vocals and different different approaches to vocals that I'm using, and like backing vocals and ad libs, and even though like some of the stuff is like really subtle, and you know, maybe no one will, you know, not knowing, but, you know, maybe it's not the first thing that people pay attention to, but I know it's there. So it's you know, it's, I like it. You know what I mean? There's like little things that I know that I put in there that, you know, maybe you'll hear like in the 12th listen. I've always loved records like that. You know what I mean? So it's like we always try to add like not just lyric things like that, but also like musically, there's always, you know, little things that you may not hear at first, but they're there buried in the mix, or maybe only come out like, you know, panned on the left speaker at one point. You know what I mean? Like little things like that. I just always intrigue me. I don't know. The way like the Beatles mixed like the like later albums, like that always like intrigued me. You know what I mean? Like there's like so much of that, like kind of like that, those psychoacoustics that are just so dope, man. You know, it makes the listening to a record so much more enjoyable, you know.
100%. It's a wicked record, and obviously I'm like everyone, not even really scratching the surface of it, but I feel like I'm far enough in to say that I like it. So people should go and check it out. I'll put links in the show notes. And yeah, we should talk about your important records, Will. So one question I like to ask at this point is how you thought about the term important when picking your list. I wonder if there's a particular way that you understood importance in order to produce the 3 records that you did.
Yeah, I have to like start by saying like I hate like trying to come up with lists like this because I know like, it's like I know that, you know, like it shouldn't matter, you know what I mean? Like I could pick any records that I want. It shouldn't be like so hard. But when my publicist sent me this, I was just like, oh no, because like I know myself. I'm like, yo, like I'm gonna like just sit here and like create a list that's probably gonna be like 20 albums, and then I'm gonna have to like rearrange it, and then I'm gonna have to figure out which ones I really want to put on. And yo, it's like I'm like I struggled with this so much. I definitely lost sleep over this. Like I was up last night, like till like 3 a.m, like listening to the 3 that I chose to make sure that like, are these the 3 that I really want on here? Like I don't know why, like, but I guess like, you know, like I love music, man. I really do, and it's like when it's that important to you, like these things matter. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely. Yeah.
So I mean, like I ended up settling on important, because it like important as I guess like all 3 of them, I guess, kind of have something to do with becoming dialect, I guess, in a weird way, and so and like one of them has some of that, but also I think is more just reminds me of certain times in dialect. I mean, we'll get to it when we get to that one, but that's how I chose them. But then like I didn't choose like the ones that I always talk about, because I felt like, you know, like I always, you know, people ask me like my influences, and I always go to, you know, Public Enemy, Takes a Nation of Millions, and I go to MBV, Loveless, which is absolutely 100% true. But I feel like that's just like anyone that knows us, like they would expect those records. And then I felt like maybe I shouldn't talk about those records, because those records are giants, man. Like people have talked about those like forever. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I don't know. I felt like I'd go like a little bit of a different route, but not really. I mean, these are 3 that are really important to me, but and probably on the same level as those. You know what I mean? Because that's the other thing. It's like when people ask, like, you know, the most influential records, I mean, like the list is crazy. It has to be at least 100 records, if not more. You know what I mean? I'm influenced by like things that I heard yesterday. Yeah, so
100%.
It's tough, you know?
Yeah. Well, thank you for persisting. I mean, which one did you want to talk about first?
I mean, we could start with Boogie Down Productions, and I settled on, because I struggled, even though I definitely knew I wanted to talk about Boogie Down Productions. I struggled whether I was going to talk about Criminal Minded or if I was going to talk about By All Means Necessary.
Yeah, we can cheat. We can mention both for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, like, yeah, let me start by saying this. So Criminal Minded, that record, I mean, really, really, really changed my life. Like KRS-One in general is probably the main reason why I wanted to be an MC. And hearing that record, I heard that record. I still remember the day I heard the record. My cousin put that record on cassette in his car in the parking lot of Brendan Byrne Arena. We went to the Eddie Murphy Raw concert. I was 12 years old. I should have not been going to the Eddie Murphy Raw concert at 12 years old, but I did with my older cousin. That was 87. And like that record, man, that just changed everything I understood about hip hop. You know what I mean? Like when I heard Criminal Minded, it was just top to bottom, like that album is crazy. But that's like my cousin put me on that one. I remember when I remember waiting for Boogie Down Productions to put out another record. And when I heard that they were putting out By All Means Necessary, I remember going to the record shop. I remember it was Record City in Passaic, New Jersey. I remember Joe, the dude that owned the store. Shout outs to Joe. I walked in, I asked for that. And like that dude, like, yo, I remember going to that shop. I used to go there all the time. My cousins were DJs like when I was growing up. So like they put me onto the record store.
Cool.
And I was a little kid going in there. And I remember like, going in there, Joe, whenever I would walk in, he'd be like, "Hey, fat boy," like always busting my chops. I'd be like, it was like you had to pay dues to be in that shop. But that dude, like, I didn't give a fuck. Like, he talked all the shit he wanted to. I would go in there, I would buy my records. And I remember when I bought Boogie Down Productions, it like changed. Like our relationship changed. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, he was like I was 13 years old, and he was like, he saw that I was buying this Boogie Down Productions record, and then from that point on, he was like, he would put me on to the new stuff that was coming out. You know what I mean? And I remember I was thinking about this last night, man. Like that, like 88 was crazy for hip hop. Because like I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure he put me onto EPMD, Strictly Business. That came out that year along with Eric B. Rakim, Follow the Leader, and Takes a Nation of Millions, and the KRS one. The Boogie Down Productions, By All Means Necessary.
Wow.
Like that, it's insane to me that year. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. But I'm just like thinking back, like those records that I bought, you know what I mean? Like in that stretch of months, man, is insane. Because that's like the foundation of everything that I hold dear in hip hop. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So take me back to that moment where you're in the car and you're listening to Boogie Down Productions for the first time. Like, I mean, what had you been listening to up until that point? Like, what was your basis in hip hop before hearing that?
I mean, Run DMC.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like Treacherous 3. My cousins were big like on that. Treacherous 3, Melly Mel. So I was well versed in like early hip hop because they were spinning all that. You know what I mean? Like Houdini, UTFO, Roxanne, like, you know, like Roxanne Shante, like all that. You know what I mean? But KRS just like was different, man. Like the way he rhymed, like what he was rhyming about, like the different styles he used. Like the way he brought in like the whole like dance hall like vibe, you know what I mean? Like the whole toasting thing. Like that wasn't, I had never heard that before in hip hop. You know what I mean? Like I was like, yo, like what is this dude doing? And what's crazy to me is like, so he does that record, he does Criminal Minded, and Skylar Rock gets shot and killed, man. Like his producer, DJ. So in my mind, I'm thinking like, yo, like, you know, that was in my mind. I was like, yo, this is my favorite group. And then like I find out the DJ's killed, and I'm just like, yo, like heartbroken. And I'm not thinking that my man's gonna come back. And then I hear that he's coming back with this next album and drops. And the shift from like Criminal Minded was so like street, but then like By All Means Necessary, he's on the cover like Malcolm X. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's holding like Uzi at the window. Or Mac 10 at the window, and like the first joint comes on like My Philosophy, and it's like you know he recreates himself as the teacher, and it's just like everything he's spitting is just knowledge, man. But it's still raw, and it's still like all these varied styles. Like he's, you know, you could tell that, you know, his freestyles is ridiculous. Like he can like tear apart like Eddie MC, you know what I mean? And I was in awe, man. Like that plus, and then on top of that, the music is ridiculous. It's like the samples they using, like just the drums, like just, man, like that era, man. Like what I really loved about that era and what I really like held on to is like how every MC had a different style. You know what I mean? And that's like, I try to tell people like with Dälek, like that's what we try. Like that's the tenet of hip hop that I hold on to the most. It's like, it's not that I want everyone to sound like us. It's just that this is my voice. This is the way I sound. Because like back then in '88, man, like the worst thing you could do was be a biter. You know what I mean? Like if you came out sounding like somebody else, people would be like, yo, like what's that? You know what I mean? Like if I want to listen to KRS, I listen to KRS. Like what? Like why are you doing that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like to me, it's like, you know, like that's what kind of like drove me to, you know, keep trying to you know, find my own lane and find my own voice and my own style. And I mean, and like, yo, I was rhyming at like probably like 15. You know what I mean? Because I started as a DJ. I didn't start rhyming until like probably like 15. I was terrible. You know what I mean? It took me a it took me a long time to find my voice, man. Like, and shout outs to Octopus, because it wasn't really until me and him linked up that it all really started clicking. You know,
Wow.
like between like me meeting Octopus, meeting Joshua Booth, and meeting the Lab Techs. Like those are like the three that combination. Like all of us, like always chilling and always listening to music and always like bouncing ideas off of each other is what finally, like, you know, I cracked the code. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
yeah. Yeah.
yeah, but it's like, you know, people like want to believe that, you know, like you're born amazing, and like, nah, man, this shit takes hard work. B. You know what I mean? Like, I guess you have to have some sort of talent or whatever, but you still got to hone that craft, man. It's like that's just like, you know, to make a Wu-Tang analogy. It's like, you know, if you're a sword, when you first around, you just that steel. It needs to be honed and sharpened. You know what I mean?
I mean, also take me back to listening to these records. Like, what kind of memories do you have of, you know, when you think back to what listening to this record looked like when you were like 13? How are you doing it? Where are you doing it?
This one, I remember bringing it home on vinyl and listening to it like in my bedroom on, you know, I think it was on a Gemini turntable that I had, belt drive turntable. So that's what I learned to DJ on. So that you had that. There was no sync buttons. There was none of that. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if you were DJing on belt drive turntables, like you knew how to. You had to know how to like let go of the record and kind of push it a little to make sure that like it matched up the speed. Like you had to know the machinery. You know what I mean? Like you had to, like, you know, get the tempo right with the what do you call it, the pitch slider. Yo, there's a technique to DJing. Like I'm not a DJ anymore. Like when I get on now, like I have too much respect for DJs to call myself a DJ. Like I'm a selector. Like I'll get on and I'll play joints. But to be an actual DJ, man, like shout out to all the DJs out there, because like that's real work and that's real skill. And I'm not talking like I said, I'm not talking about the sync button. You know what I mean? Like any of that. That's, you know, that's basically like I you know, from home, like when I do like my little DJ broadcast, like I'm DJing off an iPad. That's all fun or whatever, but that's not DJing, man.
Right.
You know, like I said, that's select. But back then, man, like I was just getting started, had my little Gemini setup, and yeah, I remember listening to KRS, man. Listening to my philosophy was like it again, man, like just earth shifting. Like everything, like every song, every track that came on, it was just like, what? You know what I mean? Like, just like bugged out, man. Like, I mean, like, you know, like even like he's like the use of like use like the little vocal samples. I mean, you hear that a lot in like you know, in like dialect stuff. Like I love like those old speeches and shit like that. And like KRS was doing that, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like the way that shit starts, man. He's like, let us begin. What, where, why, or when will all be explained like instructions to a game. See, I'm not insane. In fact, I'm kind of rational. Yo, come on, man. Like that, yo. You know what I mean? Like, it like, yo, like I'm 46 years old and I can still like recite like most of that verse. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like ingrained in part of my brain. Like I have a hard time remembering my lyrics, but like I can still remember most of KRS's. But yeah, man, it was just it's crazy, man. And like he was 22 at that point. You know what I mean? Like
unreal.
Yeah, it's because like I don't like all those records that came out. Like I always forget, man. Like they were kids. You know what I mean? But like, I was younger, so to me, like they were gods, they were superstars. You know what I mean? So in my mind, he was an adult, even though he was 22, man. Like,
Totally.
it's crazy, you know.
So I know as well. You've said with Boogie Down Productions, I'm trying to remember which record it was. There's a track that's still one of your favorites. Is it called Illegal Business? Is that the one?
Oh yeah. That's on All Means by All Means Necessary as well. Yeah, that track is crazy because like it's still like that track came out in '88 and it's still relevant today.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's like that, and that like that's like it's so captivating, like the just the storytelling and the way he breaks it down, and like, you know, just you know, the whole drug game, but like on the bigger level, on the world stage. And man, it's just, yeah, like it's crazy that it's still 100% relevant today, like all these years later. You know what I mean? But yeah, joints like that, I'm still number one. Yeah, like what's that the other joint? Part-time sucker, like where he does that thing like where like he did it on the first record where he did something like with a Billy Joel song like that, where he doesn't really sample it. He just kind of takes the vocal like melody and uses it in a rhyme kind of thing. And he does the same thing in Part-Time Sucker with it was a Stevie Wonder, Part-Time Lover.
That's it. Yeah, I couldn't remember which song it was.
There's another. He does something else with another one with a Wing song that I recently figured out. Where I was like, wait, because I heard the Wing song and I was like, oh, you know what it is? That's Jimmy on this one too. So do me a favor, wear your hat. It's Jimmy. That's from a Wing song that somebody's knocking on my door. Somebody's ringing the bell.
I knew there was another one. Yeah.
But he does like that. I love when he does that because it's like it's not really sampling. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like he like takes like the vocal style and like makes it part of the lyrics. It's so ill, man.
Yeah.
What's crazy is that like for as great as Boogie Down Productions albums are, like he's even better live. That's the craziest part, man. Because I saw him, the first time I saw him was 92, right before he dropped Edutainment. I saw him and De La Soul opened up for him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was at Seton Hall University. I remember like I bought the ticket. I went by myself. I bought the ticket for like, I think it was like $5. And it was like a balcony seat, but they had no security. At least not like when I showed up. So I just like wandered to the front row and just sat down. And it was at a college, you know what I mean? So like I guess the security was probably like students and shit. So I just sat at the front row and no one ever said anything. So like De La Soul started. And then once De La Soul started, it was like, you know, everyone wasn't really even in their seats anymore.
Yeah.
So it didn't really matter. You know what I mean? Like I was just like, all right, cool. So I had like basically, you know, at that point everyone was kind of like rushing to the front. So it wasn't even really seats. It was just kind of like in the crowd. But I was like, instead of being in a balcony seat, I was like down on the floor. But yeah, man, like I was mesmerized. Like seeing that, I think that might have been the show. Like like I said, like KRS has changed my life completely. Like the Boogie Down production records, but seeing that performance specifically, seeing him live, I remember that's like when I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do.
Oh,
like just
wow.
like seeing that whole thing. Especially just because like De La Soul is another group that's really like highly influential. And seeing those two groups together was just like that. It's crazy that was a show. You know what I mean? Like I feel like, yeah, like they were the openers for Boogie Down Productions, which is crazy.
For $5.
Yeah, for $5 is like insane, man. But his like just the way he just captivates a crowd, like his mic control, breath control. It's always just, you know, it's him on stage. Like he never had like a million hype men with him or any of that. It was just like him actually rhyming. There was no backing tracks, like as far as like, you know, vocals like that are played. You know what I mean? Like when he's rhyming, like he's actually rhyming like the songs, you know what I mean? Like he's doing the work. And I always took that to heart. Because I was like, man, I was like, when I started performing, I was like, that's the way I want to do shit. Like I'm no KRS, but like I always wanted to make sure that I was actually the one up there rhyming. I wasn't, you know, like there wasn't like any gimmicks as far as like, oh, you know, like I'm rhyming over the record. I know like a lot of cats do that nowadays, and that's so disheartening to me because I'm just like, what am I watching? You know what I mean? Like why am I watching you rhyme on a record that I could buy? You know what I mean? Like I don't understand. Like I don't understand that.
Yeah.
So like I've always just held his live performances in really high regard. We actually got to open up for him for a couple shows like back in the day, and yeah, man, like that was insane to me. That was so ill to me, and I actually like went out of my way not to meet him, just because I hold him. Yeah, because I just like at that point, like I had met some other idols, and it just, you know, I think it's I think Bob Dylan has a quote in his book, like something like, you know, anytime you meet one of your idols, you're only going to be disappointed or something like that. And it's pretty true. It's, you know, you're only going to be disappointed. I think the full quote was something like, because like, you know, in the end, they're only men. They're only, you know, they're only people. And that's the truth. You know what I mean? It's like we build these people up to be something in our own mind. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be that in real life. You know what I mean? And I don't know, like just because KRS is so important to me, from like such a young age, I was like, yeah, I probably have like some sort of image of him that may not reflect exactly who he is at all.
Yeah.
And I'd rather just keep like that childhood image. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. I often think about that as well, that there's such a weight of emotion that you want to convey to these people, and yet maybe it's something that they hear once a week, and you're like, but this is everything to me. And maybe it just...
No doubt, it's, and I again, I'm no KRS by any means, any stretch of the imagination. Mm-hmm. But, I have had, some people approach me telling me like how important my lyrics are to them. And, like those moments are humbling. And I'm, again, like, the size artist I am and the amount of times that's happened is a handful compared to like someone like KRS probably gets that on a daily basis,
Yeah.
So I understand, like, maybe like not being irritated, but just kind of, it's like, that's just like, you deal with that on a day-to-day basis, just because that's like, part of your job. Like, I get it. It might be like, if you meet him and he's kind of like dismissive, it may not be that he's dismissive. It's just, you know what I mean? It's like, how do you respond to that every single day?
Yeah, absolutely. Or like, just as you're running late for your train or something, it's just like, it may just totally ruin it for you. But
I actually like, it's actually a funny story in that vein. I happened to be in Manhattan and I saw that there was like a book signing at Barnes and Nobles, and it was for, what was it? I forget the name of the photographer. Glenn Friedman.
Mm-hmm.
That's the name, right? Yeah. He did like all like the classic hip hop photography. And like, I see like this poster up in front of the Barnes and Nobles, and it's like today, and he's signing, and it's like DMC and Chuck D. And I'm like, what? I was like, I'm definitely going to this. You know what I mean? So again, like, 100%, like, real talk. I just happened to be there. It wasn't like, like I knew this event was coming up or anything. I just happened to be there. So I walk in, and I turned out to be the first person there.
What?
Right? So I'm like standing on line, but now I'm like, as the line fills up, I start realizing there's a lot of weirdos on this line. You know what I mean? Like the dudes that get there like early, and I'm like, oh shit, like I'm the first one, so I'm even weirder, I guess. Like at least like that's the perception. So I end up being like, everyone takes the, like, I guess the deal was you had to buy the book to get it signed. And I'm like, yeah, of course. I mean, I got no problem with that. So I do that. And, sit down there, have like a whole panel discussion. It was amazing, man. Like, Chuck Chillout ended up coming out there, and Run from Run DMC was there. It was like all these, who else? Because, it's New York. So like a lot of these cats are just around. So they'll just, they just popped in just to hang out. And it was my man from Dr. Dre, but from the Dr. Dre and Ed Lover show. He was there.
Wow.
Mad cats were up there, man. So at the end of it, they're like, oh, all right, so, get on this line and you can get up there and get your book signed. So I was like, all right, cool. So I get up there and I'm, again, I'm like one of the first ones up there. And I'm just like, oh, man. I'm like, this is like, it's a little weird. But at the same time, it's Chuck D and it's DMC. And it's like, yo, these are like childhood idols of mine, man. And so, Chuck is talking to DMC. They're kind of like conversating amongst each other. They're all just kind of just signing and passing the book over and signing it. And as they do that, like I say to Chuck, I was like, yo, Chuck, I just wanted to say, man, like your music really changed my life, man. And I, put my hand out to, give him a pound. He gives me a pound, but it was like, he was kind of like, all right, man, thanks, kid. And he just keeps on conversating. And I was just like part of me was like, what the fuck? But part of me was like, no, I've probably done that at one or two of my shows in my life. I was like, hey, it's karma. I was just all right. I was like, all right. I was like, whatever, man. It's okay. So I just grabbed my book and walked on. But but again, man, it's like, like it's all good, man. Like in their mind, it's like, oh yeah, look at this weirdo that, like lined up like 3 hours ago to get this book signed. And I'm like, actually, yeah, I am that weirdo that was here early. So whatever, man. Like, fuck it. I'll own up to it. What am I gonna do? I'm a huge fan. I am. So but yeah, man. But it was funny, man. But like again, with opening up for KRS, like he might be like the only dude that like only artist that I just like really went out of my way not to. I was just like, I don't even really want to bother him or like have that awkward conversation. I just rather we opened up, we played, that was that, and that by itself was enough. I felt like that was great. I mean, like, as far as I'm concerned, like to be able to say that I rocked the show before KRS was, I mean, that's pretty much all I've ever wanted to do in life. You know what I mean? So
blinded, looking for a style like mine, you can't find it. They are the audience, I am the lyricist. Sometimes the suckers on the side gotta hear this page of rage, yet I'm not in a cage. Free as a bird to fly about on stage. Ain't here for no frontin', just to say a little something. Your suckers don't like me cause you're all about nothing. However, I'm really fascinating to the letter. My all-around performance gets better and better. My English grammar comes down like a hammer. You need style, I need to pull your ball. I don't beg favors, you're kissing other people's.
Okay, well, let's go to your second important record now. Which one do you want to go for now?
Oh man. Yeah, we're gonna go, I guess we'll go chronologically. So let's go with All Natural Lemon Lime Flavors, Turning Into Small.
Nice. Okay, cool.
Yeah, this one is I mean, like, I feel like I'm like stacking the deck a little bit because I, like, full disclosure, like, my brother Joshua Booth is in this band.
Yeah.
Jeremy Winter, Jet Brando, I mean, he's in the band. I mean, like, obviously, I know the band. Octopus recorded and mixed this album.
Mm-hmm.
But in all honesty, even if I didn't know these dudes, like, their music was so influential to Dälek even before Josh was. I mean, like, even before Josh agreed to work with us, when I went out to see them perform live, I was blown away by these guys. And their sound, I mean, their sound really is so instrumental to what we do, because without Josh, Dälek wouldn't be what Dälek is. I mean, that dude, like, he always gets credited as our musical guru. And I'm pretty sure he hates when I say that, but it's true. You know what I mean? Like, that brother, again, like, that's one of the core brothers of, meeting him and meeting, like, this whole band and watching them perform and being at this session. Like, I remember, like, I was at this, like, these recorded, like, this whole recorded session.
Wow.
It was like over, like, the course of, like, probably like a month or so, but I was there. Like, I was still working as a car messenger, and I was trying to figure out, I can't remember. I think that Negro Necros came out slightly before this album, but I can't really exactly remember. I know they both came out like the same year on the same label, Gurn Blanston, but I don't remember exactly like the months that they came out in. So I can't, but I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, which I usually don't, which is the problem, that Negro Necros came out slightly before this, because they had like their self-titled album, which on its own was unbelievable. And then they started working on this album. I think they did a couple singles in between too. But yeah, like, at this point, like, we were family, man. Like, we were always, chilling. And I was at their shows all the time, and I was at these sessions. I was working as a car messenger, and I would, like, after work, I would just, like, roll up, go over there, hang out with them, be drinking 40s Old English. And I'd be, like, laid out on the couch, like, just soaking in, like, everything they were doing. And I mean, these kids, man, I was just in awe of all of them, man. Like, for real, like, Merk, Stephen Doherty, and his brother Brian. Brian played drums. Stiv was one of the main songwriters. He played guitars and keyboards and did a lot of the vocals. Josh did a lot of the guitars, songwriting, and did the vocals. Like, the two of them would be like the Lennon McCartney of this band, I guess. If we had to do like the Beatle analogy.
Yeah.
Merk would be the George Harrison. Jared played bass for them, did some vocals, and I think he did like a couple songs on here. But it was weird, like, the song, like, he only has like a couple songs on the albums that he wrote himself, but you can kind of see like where he was going to go in the future, as far as like when he started doing Jet Brando. Like, his voice is so unique, like that, like, kind of baritone sound. And whenever he came on, I was like, man, that's dope. And his bass lines were so ill in L&L. They're just so intricate, and like, but there's so much going on in their songs. I mean, much like Dialect. I mean, like, as far as like layering of sounds and layering of guitars and synths, and the vocal approach was like very MBV. You know, they get that comparison a lot, you know, justifiably, like to MBV, but I feel like there's a lot more going on than just My Bloody Valentine. You know what I mean? Like they had like a lot of other shit going on. They had like, there's definitely to my ear, like some of that, like the Cocktail Twins,
Totally.
Stereo Lab, even like, you know, some like television, because it has like that, like the guitars are definitely more abrasive than than like your standard like shoegaze, you know what I mean? So like they had like this like, I don't know, like that New York kind of vibe to it, but then it also had like almost like psychedelic rock feel to it. It just had like so many layers, and they definitely had like that Beatles influence. So there was like some of that in the melodies. It was just like, man, like it was just like so layered and so intense. And then like there's just like those moments that, you know, like where you get washed over with this wall of sound, man. Like obviously that's, you know, that we were heavily influenced by that. And, you know, again, like Octopus recorded and mixed this, and was, you know, he was the kind of engineer that was like almost like a co-producer, you know what I mean? Like, you know, with all the projects that he worked with, it wasn't just him sitting behind the board. He was very hands-on with like, you know, working with the bands to achieve what they were trying to achieve. And man, like honestly, like, you know, I don't say this lightly, man. Like I watched them create a masterpiece, man. Like this album it's criminally underrated. I feel like lately I see like a lot more people talking about it, which is nice. But I was there when they were doing it, man, and like seeing them perform live back then. The crowds weren't always the biggest, but man, that sound was intense. I mean, they had so much gear on stage that sometimes like the shows would, you know, half the show would be them setting up gear, and sometimes there'd be like techno demons, as Jared would like to call them, where, you know, things wouldn't always work out correct. But let me tell you something, when the days they got that shit right though, man, like those shows were something to experience, man. Like I don't think I've ever witnessed like shows that powerful, other than, you know, when I finally got to see My Bloody Valentine play live. But like these cats, man, like they just, and like Stiv, I feel like Josh and Stiv, like their vocals might be like some of the most beautiful beautiful melodies I've ever heard, man. Like, just like the way they composed it, kind of the back and forth of their vocals and layering. They did like this weird thing, like where I'm not even, I maybe like it wasn't even really like words. It was just sounds.
Yeah.
So like I was saying, like it sounds like some of these songs sound like they sound like alien love songs. You know what I mean? It's like I don't know what language it is. I don't know what I'm hearing, but I love it, man. It's crazy.
So how did you first come into the band? Like, how did you come to know them?
Through Octopus. So basically, it's crazy. Right. That's a crazy story too, because so me and Octopus went to the same university together. At the time it was college, William Patterson College, and my freshman year, I had an English class where there was this kid in the front row of the class. I would walk in, and every day I would just nod at him and say, "What's up?" And that was it. Like he would nod back. we never spoke outside of class. We never spoke. It was just like, "What up?" You know what I mean? But always acknowledgement of each other the whole year. At that same school, I met Octopus. Me and him had a class together. We hit it off. I had a Walkman with like some beats that I was working on, and you know, I played it for him. He was like, "Yo, this shit is dope." He was like, "Yo, you know, I got a recording studio. You should come through sometime." I was like, "Word." At that point, I was in a hip hop group with these cats that I knew from high school. I also met Angel Fernandez, aka Taxman. He's like from out here where I live now, like Union City area, and you know, he found out that I was an MC. He was like, "Oh, you know, I run with this whole crew of MCs." I was like, "Oh, word, we should get up." So like these friendships kind of started, and then that crew that I was with from high school kind of fell apart, and then I was kind of just left on my own. And at that point, I remember like I had this decision to make. It was like go back to school or buy myself a sampler and like try to do this on my own for real. Because before it was like, you know, like I actually relied on ironically DJ Rec to be my, you know, he was the beat maker of that group. But then at one point he moved to Florida. So it was like he moved to Florida, me and the other MCs had a falling out. So it was just like, you know, next thing you knew, it was just me. So I was like, fuck. I was like, so do I go to school, get my bullshit degree, and probably not get a job anyway? Or do I take the money that I was going to use to pay my last semesters of tuition and buy an MPC 3000?
Oh,
and I was like, well, I think I'm a gamble on myself and buy an MPC. You know, like this story I only tell as an anecdote. I don't. This is definitely not for kids to try to do. Because like I don't suggest you take the route I took, because it's definitely not the smart move. But it is the choice that I made. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't regret it, but I very much could be telling this story to myself, laying in the gutter right now, thinking that I'm on a podcast. But so you know, it's a very fine line, man. Like, gotta be careful. But anyway, so I bought that MPC, started working on shit, and then I remembered, you know, that you know, the Octopus had the studio, so I reached out to him, and you know, I hadn't spoken to him in a minute, but he was like, as soon as I called him, he was like, yeah, man, come through. And I remember from the first time me and him started working on stuff, at first it was more like, you know, I was a client at his studio, but that changed like really quickly, where it was just like family, man. We just started hanging out after the sessions, a lot of drinking involved, and just a lot of conversating and playing each other like different music and things that we each liked, and things that we both liked, and kind of like learning about, you know, what we wanted to do with music, and finding out that we had like very similar ideas of what we wanted to do. And at that point, when me and him started working together, he was like, yo, he's like, there's a cat that I want to bring in to work with us. That he's like, he went to the same school as us. And I was like, word. I was like, you know, call him in. So this kid walks in, and it's Josh Booth, and we both look at each other and we're like, yo, you were in that English class like freshman year? And he was like, yeah. The kid I was nodding at, and he was nodding back like that first year for no apparent reason, is the dude that walks in, and it's Josh Booth from All Natural Lemon Flavors. And like from that, you know, we were kind of like bugged out by that. And then I went out, like I remember he was playing. I think the first time I saw him play was probably at Brownies in Hoboken. No, I'm sorry, Maxwell's in Hoboken. And I remember I went to their show, just hung out with them and watched them perform, and I was just completely blown away by the sound and just in love with the band. I was like, yo, this is like, they were my favorite band right then and there. You know what I mean?
Wow, yeah.
And and like, you know, from there, like, you know, just, you know, just friendships. And then like at this point, man, like those are my brothers, man. Like all of them. Obviously, I still work with Jeremy, and you know, Josh obviously is still you know, part of Dälek to this day. And me and Jared, you know, work on the Jet Brando stuff together. He's done some bass on Dälek tracks as well. Merc and Stiv, like actually Octopus works with Merc with MRC Rhythm, so they're all still very involved in the whole universe. Stiv lives down in South Jersey, but we still keep in contact from time to time. He started doing music again recently, and it's creating some beautiful stuff, man. But like that, like this record in particular, man, Turning Into Small, that just, you know, it just changed my perception of what music could be. You know what I mean? Like this, and simultaneously Loveless. You know what I mean? Like it's like I didn't know about shoegaze. You know what I mean? It was Octopus and Josh that really put me onto that whole world. It was like, I don't know, it was like discovering music all over again. You know what I mean? Which is I love that about music, because it happens all the time. You know what I mean? Like there's always like a record that'll come, you know, that you get to hear. It might be brand new, or it might be something that came out, you know, decades ago that you just like overlooked, and when you finally hear it, you're just like, what? And it, you know, it just kind of like rearranges your view on everything. I love that about music, and this record absolutely did that for me. It just like, and I think just like being able to watch these guys actually craft their music was just, it's just really like just it's hard to, like, it's just so amazing to watch those brothers work, man. Because like Steve in particular, like his the way he writes melodies, and I got a chance to work with him like at my first studio, my bedroom studio, and recorded him just like on acoustic guitar and vocals, and like that by itself like is just, it's amazing, like just like the songs that he writes, man. And same thing with Josh. Like I know, like it's funny, like Josh does a lot of guitar work for us now, but like he doesn't sing anymore. But like his vocals were so good back then, and like he hates his voice, but I think he's an idiot.
Oh, really?
It's amazing. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I'm curious as to like why, as you say, it feels criminally underrated. Like I listened to it and I was like, this is a really, really strong record. Like I spun it a couple of times through, right? So not loads at this point, but what do you think happened there? I mean, I think it came out, I guess, in terms of like the scene, which sadly has, like, I guess applies a lot of pressure on whether things rise to the top. I suppose it's quite late in the kind of shoegaze thing, but
yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I think maybe it came out a little later. It also came out on Graham Blanston, which I mean we did too. And you know, right. Graham Blanston wasn't a hip hop label and it wasn't a shoegaze label.
Right.
So,
right. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like we were able to get on to Ipecac. I mean, granted, Ipecac isn't a hip hop label either, but we kind of like, you know, made our own lane, you know, on Ipecac and because of Ipecac, you know, but I guess L&L never had that chance to find like a home like that, you know, which is unfortunate, man. Because I really feel like they were onto something amazing. Like there's the next it's not even an album; it's a compilation of like a bunch of singles that they put out. Blue Line, I forget the name of the compilation CD, but there's like some joints on there that are just unbelievable. And yeah, I feel like they would have had they had a home, like a label like that, like they could have done some even more amazing things, you know. But it's also like I don't know, like I don't really know what happened as far as like in the group dynamics. Like that's always tough too, because it's like a band with that many members, you know. I just imagine there's always something going on, like, you know, like the inner workings of the band are always tough. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
totally. I know that like from experience, like I said, from like the groups I was in high school and all that. Like there's always, you know, the more people you have to deal with, the harder it gets, you know. And there was like, you know, 5 dudes in this band, so I'm sure that wasn't easy. Because for as much as you may love each other and, you know, may have you know, be brothers, it's always hard to maintain something with that many people, you know.
Totally, yeah. I mean, they all need to stay in one spot, right? In order for that band to be logistically like viable, at least kind of really prolific, and that just doesn't tend to happen. But do you have a favorite track on this record?
Oof, I mean, Your Imagination, probably.
Yeah, cool.
I just feel like that one is just so I don't know, just that wall of sound, the way it builds is just so perfect. You know what I mean? Like it just kind of like it just like envelops you, and like I could listen to that, like that ending forever. Like if that track, like it's already like 7 minutes or something. But if that thing went,
it feels long.
Yeah, if it went 20 minutes, I'd be fine with it. You know what I mean? Like it wouldn't bother me at all.
Yeah.
And also like I think again, like when I first heard these guys, like tracks like that always fascinated me, because I was like, you know, at that point, man, like I didn't know a lot, man. Like I was like, you know, not that I didn't know a lot, you know, like I didn't know anything, but like I didn't know shoegaze. And it's like when those drums kick in, I was like, yo, that's hip hop right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like it was like that track was like almost like because I remember them playing that one live and me thinking, like, I was thinking like, yo, those drums, like I would love to rhyme on that. You know what I mean? And it's like that's kind of like that's like the you know, the idea of Dälek really is right there. You know what I mean? Because it has like that same like guitar wall of sound and the synths, and you know what I mean, like just kind of like that the vocals, like just the dreaminess of it, man. It's just so dope. But yeah, that track is great. I mean, like the whole album, like the first track, like I said, like that whole like alien love song idea, you have like it's like Josh's and Stiv's vocals kind of like back and forth, like with these weird, again, like they're not even, because I remember like the first time like I, you know, heard him, I was like, yo, so like what are your lyrics? And he was like, oh no, there's no, he's like, there's no words.
I was like, what? And as a lyricist, like that just fucking blew my mind. I'm like, what do you mean there's no words? And he was like, yeah, it's like, it's just, we just, whatever sounds good. He's like, it's the melodies what matter. Like the words, like kind of whatever, we just make up whatever to fit in there. And I was like, yo, to me, that was like, as an MC, that was like the craziest thing I ever heard in my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I always found that when trying to read like MBV's lyrics or something. And you'd be like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have bothered. Like, it's fine as it is. Let's go to your final important record then, Will. So, yeah, what have we got?
So Tom Petty Wildflowers. Which I know, like, every time I've brought up in the past that, I love Tom Petty, and I think I feel like a lot of times when I say that, I could almost hear like the interviewer like giggling. You know what I mean? Like they don't believe me. And I'm like, why can't I be a Tom Petty fan, man?
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And honestly, man, like I love this record. Like I've always been into Petty. Tom Petty is like, he's a national treasure, man. You know what I mean? So, and like, I grew up in the 80s, man. So like I grew up on MTV. So I was, American Girl, Refugee. You know what I mean? Like what was the one like where the space biker you got lucky. Yeah, with that weird synth, you know what I mean? So he's had like so many videos that were like part of my youth that's just kind of ingrained like in me. But this record, man, I was trying to remember like when I first heard it, because I know it came out in 94, but I don't think I heard it in 94. I probably heard it with Octopus at Sweetwood Sounds. I remember the two of us being like obsessed with it. For one, because Rick Rubin produced it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so like that was big for us because we're huge Rick Rubin fans. So I think like that was really appealing to us. And then like just just the way the record sounds, the songwriting, man, it just, that record it's just dope top to bottom, man. And I remember like this record, just like, we were talking about like why it's important. Like this one kind of brings me back to a lot of the days, like the early days, not just the early days, but a lot of like just touring. You know what I mean? Like this was like on heavy rotation in every van that we were in, on a lot of like the long cross country drives. I know like Time to Move On almost became like, I remember like that was like almost like our tour anthem. Like we would like play that on the way to the airport when we were going home. You know what I mean?
That's so cool.
It almost became like almost like as a joke, but not really. Like that song is beautiful, man. Like the whole album would be like Mike Campbell's guitars are just I can't even like what yeah, I mean, like everything that dude does is ill, man. Like that band is just incredible.
Yeah,
and just everything, man. Like the pianos, like Wildflowers, like the opening track, the actual title track. I must have this album. I don't know, man. Like I must have heard this a million times at this point. And I remember like a couple of years ago, it's probably like around like 90. I'm sorry, I saw. Yeah, probably like 2016. And I only know this, like I'll explain why I know it was 2016, but 2016, I was listening to it and talking about like, records like where there's like these little things that you might have heard the song like a million times, but then like you hear it one day and you hear something you never heard before. There's like this piano, like little piano lick. It only happens once, like during the second chorus. And like, I just never heard it before until that day.
Wow.
And like that day, I was just like, wait, what the fuck is that? And I brought it back and I listened to it again. And now like, I can't not hear it, but I love it.
Cool.
You know what I mean? And the reason I know it's 2016 is because I only got to see Tom Petty perform once. I saw him play in 2017 in Queens. And when that song came on, like I was wondering, I was like, are they gonna bother with like that, like just that little detail? And they did, and I was just like,
so
I was like,
satisfying.
Yeah, I was like, yo, I was like, there it is, they did it. But yeah, man, it's like, yo, that just like the attention to detail, man. And I mean, I think that's both, you know, that's a credit to Tom Petty, to his band, and to Rick Rubin. Like that attention to detail on this album is just, to me, it's a perfect album. You know what I mean, like the way it sounds, the songs, the lyrics, like the stories that he paints, man. And just like, I also like the other thing that I'm, I guess slightly obsessed with this album is, and why it's important to me is, you know, he released this album in '94. He was 44 years old at that point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like that is like something that I've kind of that I think about more now, you know what I mean? Because I'm 46. And as I keep making records, it's like, that's the path. That's what I'm trying to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I'm trying to create my Wildflowers. I'm trying to create my, Bob Dylan has an album like that I love, Time Out of Mind. You know what I mean? Like you have these albums that were created later in these like amazing artists' careers, but that to me are just like even better than like the work that they're like known for.
Mm-hmm.
Because like, especially like when you like someone like Bob Dylan, like his early work is amazing. And like same thing with Tom Petty, like he has amazing early work, but that work was created like when they were so young. And like, not to say that you know that you can't create amazing music when you're young. You absolutely can, obviously. But I think that like when I listen to the lyrics, especially on Wildflowers, and when I listen to the lyrics on like Time Out of Mind, it's like there's like this wisdom, this insight, and this like life experience that you can't write when, like, you know what I mean, like without having those experiences. Now, you could be, you know, again, like you could be 22 like KRS and have those life experiences and write about them at 22. You know what I mean? So like it's not necessarily an age thing. It's more just life experience, I guess. But I do, there is something about like those records, like Wildflowers and Time Out of Mind, that like that, just like that the deepness and fullness of the lyrics and of what they're conveying, like the weight of it, just, I don't know, it just like rings like more true to me. And it's definitely something that, you know, becoming an older artist, I definitely, you know, I aspire to, man.
The crazy thing I saw about this one was, I don't know if this is true, I don't know if you know any more than I do, but I read an article where it's like Petty ad-libbed the vocals for the title track, just straight through.
Yo, if that's true, then he's as ill of a freestyler as KRS-One. Then that is
unreal.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Wow.
But yeah, man. Like I feel like there's just like Time to Move On. I feel like that one, like it's like so melancholy, but like so beautiful. But there's like a couple of the stories on Crawling Back to You and Don't Fade on Me. I feel like Don't Fade on Me feels like it's like he paints like such a beautiful picture, man. It's like it sounds like a Western. You know what I mean? It sounds like it's like some like Magnificent Seven type shit or something. You know what I mean? Like like you're like on horseback on the Great Plains and shit. You know what I mean? But it's like he's like so good at just like putting you right there. But it's like it's more like personal than just like, you know, like it's cinematic, but at the same time it's like there's like this heartache and just like pain to it, you know what I mean? It's so ill, man. And like Crawling Back to You is the same thing. Like it has like that breakdown. You know, the no pun intended, but it really is heartbreak. Boom, boom. You know what I mean? Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, get it. But nah, man, like yeah, it's just like this that like what what Rick Rubin got out of him in this album is really amazing. You know what I mean? And it just seems like Rick Rubin has a habit of doing that with artists, man. Like he gets like really amazing albums out of already established artists.
Again, reading about Rick's process, where they talk quite freely about Rick coming in as a producer and making suggestions like, maybe put another bridge in there or another verse in there. And maybe it wasn't that like sweeping, but I'm like, that's such a big thing to say to a songwriter who's come to you with this crafted thing, just to be like, pop another bridge in there, like see how you go. But really, you know, was saying it like knowing that he clearly had an ear for something, right? Or was very empathetically in tune with what people were presenting to him and how to sort of lift it, which is interesting.
Yeah, I feel like there's I don't know, but those are kind of like the best kind of producers and engineers to work with. Like I said, like Octopus is very good in that way, like where he wasn't just behind the board and kind of like, all right, cool, you know, it's recording, and then like, all right, we're done. Next, you know, it was more like he would have even like before like me and him officially started working together in Dialect, like he always, you know, he had opinions about like where songs should go, or why don't you try this, or the way he was hearing it, you know what I mean? And as an artist, like I think like you appreciate that someone is taking that care and hearing your music in that way, you know. And I feel like Rick Rubin's really good at that. I mean, like with everything that he's done as far as you know, the early hip hop stuff, and you know, I mean, like the later rock stuff. I feel like he's worked on so much, like so varied music, and he's also, like I said, like he's worked like with these established artists, but he has no problem, like you said, like telling Tom Petty, like, yeah, why don't you add another bridge right there?
Right.
I mean, that's not like you're like telling some dude that never recorded before. You know what I'm saying? It's like there's a dude who has like, you know, multi-platinum albums, but the fact that Rick Rubin would say it, and the fact that Tom Petty would listen, I think that's it just shows you like how, you know, that level of trust, man. Like those are the kind of sessions like you want to have, you know.
Totally, yeah. I mean, it clearly worked, because as I understand, they put down so many tracks for this. I mean, do you see the box set they put out?
I was gonna say they released the and the rest or whatever. And, because I always wanted this album on vinyl. I never had it on vinyl. I had it on CD. And the vinyl was like, I guess they only did like one pressing initially, so like it was on like Discard for like $500 or something. I was like, I can't. As much as I love Tom Petty, I cannot buy vinyl for $500. Right. Yeah. Like I just ethically, I cannot. But just on principles, man, no. But I did buy the. I didn't buy like the crazy box set. I just bought the vinyl that had like the extra songs on it. I felt like I didn't need the demos and all that. I don't know. Like sometimes that stuff gets a little carried away. Like I don't need to hear every single step of the creation process. Sometimes you're better off not hearing everything, I feel. But I mean, some people love that, but I just wanted to be able to listen to the songs on vinyl. Like I don't care if it's a reissue or not. That doesn't bother me. But yeah, but the stuff that was left off, or that was supposed to be like the second, because I guess initially he wanted to release a double vinyl, but the label didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
The stuff that was left off is great. I mean, I really enjoyed the second half. I mean, I think probably the label was right in the sense that, you know, less is more kind of thing. You know what I mean? But because I like the track listing of the original, the way the album flows. But the extra stuff, the songs are great. You know what I mean? So like I'm glad they released them, just because it's so nice to hear it. But yeah, but it's crazy. Like when I saw him play live, man, like I remember it's crazy. My wife got me tickets, and I remember the tickets were kind of pricey, and I was on the fence, because I was like, man, that's a lot of money for a concert. But she was like, nah, you know, she convinced me. She was like, you know, you love this dude, you love his music, you got an opportunity to see him, we should go. I was like, all right. I'm glad she convinced me, man, because, you know, like that was July of 2017.
Yeah.
And then like he passed. I remember we were on tour in October, and we were on the road, and like that news came over the radio. That was heartbreaking, man.
Mm.
But that, yeah, I mean, like that, it's crazy, man. Because like that, I only saw him play that one time, and that show was so good, and like he was just on top of his game. It was just like I said, like even like like the minute details in the songs were like it was shining. Like that band was so tight, man. And yeah, I'm glad I got to see him rock, man, because that was a powerful performance, man. And like he did a lot of songs off of Wildflowers, which I really appreciated. And it's funny, I remember he played Crawling Back to You, and he was saying that he hardly ever plays that. And that's like one of my favorite joints. So I was like, man, it's
so
like
cool.
So bugged out.
Yeah. What do you make of like the more kind of like rocky stuff on this? Because I guess like there's a sort of different side to it, right? When I was listening through, I've never listened to this. My partner really likes Tom Petty, but I've never really listened to like loads. So I was going through the record, and then I got to like Honeybee, and I was like, oh, okay, what's going on here? Like, this is definitely going on a bit of a kind of rocky jag. Where do you land on that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's funny that you picked that specific one, because that specific one is probably my least favorite.
Right. Yeah.
Like out of all the songs, I just feel like that one. It's fine, but it's just not 1,000% my thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's other rock ones on there that I feel I feel are better on the album. I'm trying to think like off the top of my head.
There's one that's got this kind of like got this rhythm that's like dun 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 dun, and that's got like a bit of a gallop to it. I can't remember which one it is.
There's a couple on there that I think do it better. There's something about Honeybee that like rubs me the wrong way. Like for some reason, like that song I never liked that well. That much.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at the track listing right now. Like You Wreck Me, I think is great. But I feel like the songs that are like more rock like that, I feel like I always love them again because of us listening to it a lot on the road. It's great driving music.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like it reminds me, and it sounds like the open road, like driving through the desert in the US kind of shit. You know what I mean? Which we've done a lot on tour.
Right. Yeah.
So it has like that vibe. You know what I mean? But I definitely gravitate more towards like the melancholy, sadder joints on here. But I mean, even like You Don't Know How It Feels and It's Good to Be King, I feel like those are great. You Don't Know How It Feels specifically, just like those drums again, man. Like those drums are gigantic. I mean, and it feels like hip hop to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The drum production is really quite.
Yeah. What's the drummer's name again? 'Cause I remember like he joined the band officially after this album.
Oh, because they swapped out like the original kind of Heartbreaker drummer, didn't they, for this one?
Damn, I'm blanking on dude's name right now. But
Ringo played on a couple of them, right, as well.
He played on the outtakes that ended up on the expanded joint, because there's like one of the ones on the outtakes like sounds like it is a Beatles song. You know what I mean? Like it just sounds like and it's crazy. It has like that Ringo beat on it, and it's dope, man. I thought that was like one of the highlights of the And the Rest or whatever. But
Steve Ferrone.
Steve Ferrone. Word, yeah. Steve, there's a great documentary of that era. Now, there's like the recent one that just came out about Wildflowers specifically, but there's like another one. I think it's a document. It's a crazy long, man. Might be like 6 hours or something like that.
Oh wow!
But well worth it. I mean, it's dope because it goes through like their whole history from when they started in Florida and going out to as Mudcrutch and then going out to LA and everything. Actually, we share a love of Tom Petty with our brother John Sherman, the drummer of Red Fang.
Oh, cool!
So we actually watched that documentary at his house out in Portland one time we were out there on tour. But yeah, that's a whole nother crazy part of our history is that we linked up with John Sherman. Like I think the first time we went to Europe, he was like a drummer for hire for this band, The Laps, and we just ended up like just bonding with him. And then we like kind of made a promise to each other, like whoever got back to Europe would bring the others back out. And I think like it was like 99, we did like a short tour with Techno Animal. And we called him up. We were like, yo, we're going to Europe. You want to come out with us? And he was like, word? We were like, yeah. We're like, well, they're like, we could bring you out like as the merch guy or something. He was like, yeah, fuck that. He's like, absolutely. So we had the drum. It is before he was in Red Fang, obviously. But our claim to fame, like my claim to fame is that we had the drummer of Red Fang as a merch guy for a while.
That's so cool. That's amazing. So are there any other, I wonder, like, oh no, this was a question I was going to ask. So this makes a really good touring record. What is it that, you know, you've done this enough. What makes a good touring record? I know it needs to kind of sit right within everyone's taste, but yeah, what is it that makes it like a really good thing for taking on tour?
Yeah, man, that's so tough. I think that depends on the band. You know what I mean? For us, we've always been a band that like we've always liked the sadder end of music, I guess. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. And even though like, you know, there's like this record, you know, like it has like those rock joints that are like, you know, that those aren't necessarily like sad or anything, but the album has like this like melancholy feel. I think like I read that like he was like about to go through or had just gone through a divorce or something, which you can kind of hear in his lyrics. So I don't know. There's something about that melancholy that I don't know, just resonated with us, I guess. I think, you know, because like touring is a little melancholy, man. Because it's like, you know, it's like I live with this kind of like, I don't know. I guess I'm reading into it, but like I live with this constant like you have to like balance like being home with being on the road, and like when I'm on the road, I miss being home, and then like when I'm home, I miss being on the road. So there's always like this. Yeah. You know what I mean? There's always like this like twinge of like sadness for either or, you know? So I feel like listening to kind of like, like that, like melancholy music just kind of sits right with me when I'm on tour. Cause it's kind of like, I guess at my core, how I feel while I'm out there. Like I love what I do and I love being on the road and I love performing, but that's just like 1 hour a night. You know what I mean? Like the rest of the time, like you're like sitting backstage or sitting in a van or sitting in a rest area or on a highway or sitting in an airport. You know what I mean? There's like a lot of like waiting involved and just kind of like, there's a lot of time to contemplate. And a lot of times what you're contemplating is made a lot of decisions in my life. And now I'm sitting in this rest area in the middle of fucking nowhere.
Yeah, right.
Listening to Tom Petty Wildflowers. Should I have bought that MPC 3000 with my college money? So the answer to that question, I think, is yes. But you know, doesn't mean that you don't think about it from time to time.
But under my feet, baby, grass is growing. It's time to move on. Time to get going. Broken skyline, moving to the airport. She's an honest defector, conscientious objector, now her own protector. Yeah, broken skyline. Which way to love land? Which way to something better?
Okay, well, I've got one more question for you, which is, you said something that I really like, and obviously I think about doing this podcast a lot as well, which is listening to all natural lemon and lime flavors was like kind of being born again into music, something to that effect, right? Just rediscovering music all over again. Yeah. Do you still get those experiences now?
Absolutely, man. I think more in the last couple of years than I have maybe ever. I really feel that like we're kind of living in this. Like everything is like just like happening at such like a faster rate, I guess, just because everything is so connected. I just feel like there's so much great music available, and like everything's at your fingertips, you know. So it's like you can discover whatever you want to discover. Like I feel like when I hear people, especially like my age, start talking about like, oh, music was so much better when we were younger. Like I always tell them, I'm like, yo, like y'all stop listening then, because it's like everything is there. You just like you have to make time for it. The problem is, you know, you get older you have more responsibilities, you have less time. I understand all that. I'm lucky because this is like what I do for a living. But if you dig and you listen, like there's amazing artists out there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Just in hip hop alone right now, man, like I really feel like underground hip hop is going through like this like renaissance period with like, like dudes like Billy Woods and Elucid, like their project, like their solo projects, and then like their project together, Arm and Hammer, I think is amazing. You have like all those cats from Buffalo, Benny the Butcher and all them. Just look up like there's like a whole like underground like Buffalo hip hop scene that's insane. You have like artists like Backwash, Moody Black, Fatboy Sharif, Moore Mother. I mean, like it's like it really is kind of endless right now, man. It's like just a lot of good stuff, and not just hip hop. I mean, there's this band in Montreal that I'm like borderline obsessed with. I'm trying I'm trying to like speak us working together into existence. So I'm just gonna keep on mentioning it. But Suns, SUUNS.
Yeah.
They're so dope, man. Like their albums are just insane. Like I really feel that like us either working together or touring together would be fantastic link up. But like bands like that, man, there's just so much stuff that comes out, man. Like I feel like Kevin Martin is releasing like some of his best work right now as the Bug, you know what I mean? And that dude's been doing it forever, but it's like he keeps reinventing and keeps like pushing to new levels, man. It's just so dope to witness it. That's the thing, man. It's like, I really feel like it's all out there. It's just like people stop listening, I guess. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think the thing I found is I need to listen harder. There's more to listen to, and the option is to flip and to be like, I'll dip into this. But if you can sit down with something and the light's off and you do, and able to have the time to do that, then it can penetrate like just as much as, whatever record you found when you were 15.
Yeah, I think another record I had that another obsession I've had lately is Sufjan Stevens' Carrying Low. I feel like that album top to bottom is like everything I love about music. It's crazy. Yeah. I kind of want to remix the whole album and make it into some like weird like experimental hip hop version of that. So I don't know, but man, it's just there's a lot, man. And and it's like like a lot of these there's a lot of these like younger cats, man. Like I was saying, like Fatboy Sharif and like that whole kind of like wave that's coming of like, I don't know even how to explain it, but like they're like lyrically they're so dope and like fearless as far as like what they're doing musically. And I actually like I reached out to him just to kind of tell him that, and like as I sat down with his discography and just kind of listened to it, and I was just like, man, shit is so ill. And I told him I was like it just kind of like them like raising the bar just makes me want to stay sharper and makes me want to keep building. And like to me, that's what music's all about, man. It's like it's not necessarily competition. It's just like when you hear something that's so innovative and so ill, you want to keep pushing to see what you can create next,
Totally. Yeah.
And I honestly hope that, I never, like that feeling never goes away, man. Like I'm like I said, I'm 46 and like I love music more today, I think, than I did when I was 13. You know what I mean? And I really loved it then too. I really hope that it's a lifelong thing for me, man. Cause it's like at this point, I think more than anything, like I panic because I feel like there's not enough time to listen to all the records I want to listen to.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
There's like even more records that like I missed that were from like, the 60s or 70s that I'm still like discovering. You know what I mean? And it's like there's that plus all the new stuff that comes out. It's crazy, man. It's endless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It can be quite overwhelming, right? Like I find this with film. And I line up like 10 films I want to watch. And I'm like, well, that's 20 hours that I need to squeeze into evenings in the upcoming week.
Oh, no, yeah. Like with film, the film thing bugs me out. Because like music, you could I mean, like, it's better to do it, you know, like listen to it and not do anything else. But you could like do other things and listen to music.
Yeah.
With films, I find that like I set up like these like cues that I panic and I don't watch anything.
Yeah.
I just kind of like I go through these lists of things that I want to watch, but I'm like, I don't know which one to start with. And to watch all of these is going to take like a week.
Yes.
I don't have the time to do this. So like, let me watch Sports Center instead. Or see, I mean,
Right.
it's like I'll watch like Good Bones on HDTV instead of watching a movie because I can't decide what movie to watch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I've done that where you spend like an hour deciding. You're like, well, I'm gonna go to bed. That was fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a night of looking at a list of movies instead of actually watching.
Yeah, this has been satisfying. Great. Could have got halfway through. Fantastic. Yeah. No, I'm with you there.
No, but I mean, but that's to me, it's like it's again, it's like, you know, I feel like it's just the nature of the world that we live in now, like where information really is at your fingertips. It's just a matter of what you take in and, you know, how you like scheduling and trying to set time aside is the most important thing, I guess, now. Because it's like, it's not like before, like where, you know, I didn't even have access to half of these records. You know what I mean? Like if you wanted to hear something, you had to find a record shop that had it and you had to have the funds to buy it. And you know what I'm saying? Like, it was like, there was a lot more steps involved. Now it's like, if there's like a record that I want to hear, you just like type it in and you'll find it. And you don't even have to buy it. You can just stream it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like the immediacy of it is amazing, but it, like everything, man, with technology, it's a double-edged sword. It's like we have everything at our fingertips, but it's like that movie list problem. It's like, do we have the time to listen to everything or watch everything? So
yeah. The list's always growing quicker than I can get through
first world problems.
Isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much. It's been
thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it.
People, please do check out Precipice and in fact all the records that you just recommended as well, Will, because I had a great time with these over the past couple of days. So
oh yeah, and also don't stream them, buy them.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, part with your money.
I don't need fractions of pennies from Spotify.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you for listening, everyone, and until next time, goodbye.